one thing you said previously that I want to go back to, that because the way I guess our world and our brains are wired, we don't necessarily notice, um, the evidence of absence, if you will, right? So if we're collectively not doing something, and then someone, and I'm not trying to get political, but if everyone collectively does go to the polls, then the people that do will elect the person that ends up running the country, for example. And so you can say a lot of things, but sometimes we have to realize that not making a choice, just like not voting, or not starting that company, or not going to see how your friend is doing because you have an idea that maybe they're not doing well, like all of these things of not is an active choice. And I was hoping you could speak a little bit more to that point, because I
Yeah.
think it's so impactful that even right now I have ideas how I might be able to put your book into something that I'm writing right now, because the concept is super powerful.
Nice, definitely. And I think, like for my book and for this topic, there's I'm sure a few, but two important levels to address there. So one is just our innate psychological wiring, hardwiring, like what evolution is left in our minds. And so I
Mm.
think there's that, and I'll give an example from that side. And then there's the models side, like do we have good role models? What are people around us doing? Like you mentioned. So in the first of those, let me give an example of this, a really interesting psychological study, and there have been a bunch of these that have been done. And I give this example in the book. So there's a study where participants were told one of two stories. So the general story is there's two tennis players, let's call them Pete and Andre. They're rivals. They're about to compete in the
Amazing.
tennis championship. And Pete has a really bad food allergy to something. Let's say it's to nuts. And they're going to get breakfast before the big match, the championship match. And Andre sees that there is some food on the table with nuts on it. Okay, so that's the basic story. Now, half of the participants in the study were told that Andre explicitly encouraged Pete to, oh, you should eat that dish. It's really good, the one with nuts in it. So he explicitly encouraged Pete to do that, knowing Pete would eat it, would get sick, would not be able to compete in the match, and would therefore lose. The other half were told that Andre didn't encourage Pete to pick up that dish, but when he saw Pete pick up that dish with nuts in it, he just didn't say anything. So he knew the outcome was Pete was about to eat something that was going to make him sick, debilitate him, he would lose the match, and he chose not to speak up. Right. So here, like, it's kind of obviously what the researchers were trying to do is get participants' views on somebody who caused harm to his opponent by action, encouraging them to eat the dish, versus inaction, knowing what was going on, but just not saying anything, keeping his mouth shut.
Right.
And what the study found is that people in the first situation, people viewed Andre much more harshly than in the second. So when the act was an act of commission, hey, eat that dish, it was viewed as ethically much more bad and wrong than an act of omission, just kind of keeping his mouth shut, even when the consequence was identical in both these situations. And there have been a lot of studies that have shown the same thing. And I think what we can draw from that is, yeah, we human beings, we were not created from dust to be these perfectly ethically rational and logical smart creatures, right? We evolved from apes and from the animals that came before then, and we evolved based on what our brains evolved based on what helped us best survive. And so, if you're optimized for one thing, you're probably not going to be best at the other thing. We
Sure.
as a species, we're optimized for survival in these pre-agrarian savanna environments. That's not going to optimize you to be the most ethically logical and consistent. And this is a good example, right? Where for various reasons, I think nearly all of us innately, like our gut instinctual response is do something bad, that's way worse than not doing something, even if the result for others, the harm suffered by others, is totally the same. So I think that's
Right.
there on a psychological level. And I think that's a major barrier to all of us in even thinking about the impacts of our inaction, or if we do stop to think about them for a minute, taking them seriously or as seriously as we would take actions. I think the second thing is, and you mentioned this, models, right? If no one around us is going to vote or is taking action to prevent climate change or something like that,
Right.
we don't have those models to look to emulate. And we are, I mean, this is also getting back to the evolutionary point, but we're a highly mimetic species, right? We learn from our parents as infants and those around us. We learn culturally from others. It's one of the things that's helped us as human beings succeed is this ability to adopt, learn, and adapt cultural norms, lessons, new technologies, et cetera, from seeing others do them. And if we think about a lot of areas of life, like sports or business or the military, there's just endless examples of people who go all in to achieve that goal, right? So I mentioned in the book the example of the US American football player Tom Brady, kind of one of the best quarterbacks of all time, well known for his work ethic of just centering his life around, okay, how can I be the best football player ever? And of course, you have the same thing in every other sport, in the Olympics, et cetera. We see the same thing with professions that require a lot of work, doctors, investment bankers, et cetera. Certainly for those in the military or go off to war, there's obviously that's the highest level of sacrifice one could give, literally putting one's life on the line. So there's all these areas of life where there's endless role models of people who will do everything, do what it takes to try to succeed at this one goal. But when it comes to a goal like reducing suffering in the world, making the world a better place, there's very few of those role models. There's certainly plenty of people who care about those things and will do small things towards those ends, but virtually no role models that are just so fully dedicating their life and optimizing what they do around trying to achieve that noble goal. And so, yeah, we have both those psychological hardwiring barriers, and also those lack of role models. I think both of those are reasons why nearly all of us have never thought about or minimally thought about the harms that might happen when we choose not to act, choose not to give, choose not to spend our time, and so forth.